Whew. Thank God for no break next week, am I right? We start off this chapter with Kuma, who has finally made it to the top of the red line. And who is there waiting for him? The fucking fleet admiral, Akainu. Akainu is going through his usual berating of virtually anyone he talks to, calling Kuma mindless and stating that he can't be left to just run rampant. Akainu does give him a good magma punch, but Kuma gets the hell out of there. In my last video, I actually talked about the Marines and the Cross Guild and recapped the current situation of each of the former warlords. I actually didn't mention too much about Kuma in detail, but this actually goes along with what I was saying in regards to how the Marines are distributing their forces, so definitely check out that video after this one. Now, I think that Kuma isn't at Marijwa because he has actual business there. I have two theories on this. One, I'll get to at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. Theory number one has to do with what Akainu is remembering in this chapter of his conversations with Bonnie when she was in the custody of the Marines. She says that Kuma would never leave her behind. It's possible that Kuma has actually maintained part of his human memories, but I don't think it's just that. I think there's a high chance that Kuma has a connection to not only his Seraphim, but many of the pacifistas that share his image. This could be similar to Pain from Naruto, where they share vision, or more similar to the satellites, where they can share information. Either way, I think he's definitely headed to Egghead, which he needed to get over the red line to get to, since Kamabaka Queendom, where the Revs are, is in the first part of the Grand Line, and Egghead is in the New World, on the other side of the red line. This makes me wonder what role S. Bear will play in the rest of this arc. We've been shown already with S. Snake that the lineage factor of the warlords will cause these Seraphim to maintain some of the humanity of their counterparts, so I think there will be a moment where S-Bear saves Bonnie if Kuma doesn't himself. When Kuma pops away, the Celestial Dragons low-key start frying Akainu and his Fleet Admiral status. I know this man probably hates his job at this point. We got to Egghead where the pacifists are taking out the remaining sea beasts, and the Marines are making their way deeper into Egghead Island. Meanwhile, Gear 4 Snake Man Luffy is sending blows at Kizuru, who is blocking him. Kizuru goes on to zip away and uses acceleration to knock Luffy into next Tuesday and into the Vega Force Mark 1 that is still holding the Sunny and smashes it in half. Kizuru reiterates that he has no interest in killing Vegapunk since they have a long-standing relationship, but he has to do what he has to do. It's pretty obvious that Kizuru really doesn't want to kill Dr. Vegapunk, and the further we go into this arc, we keep getting these little glimpses into Kizuru's past with Dr. Vegapunk. We get a little glimpse just now where he remembers Dr. Vegapunk's glee in showing him the giant robot. Now, we don't know if this is the Vega Force, although it seems like it is because of the fact that he just snapped it in half. But at the same time, this is also probably a small foreshadow to something else that's coming up a little later in this chapter. I think this scene is important to show that even Gear 4's speediest form looks slow in comparison to Kizuru's speed. Now, does Luffy's speed increase exponentially in Gear 5? I guess we'll see in the rest of this arc, right? Kizuru pulls up to the rest of the Lilith group and talks to Bonnie briefly, remarking at how much she's grown. He also says that he knows that she has a grudge against Vegapunk and that he's about to end him. She says her target has changed and attacks Kizuru, but Kizuru basically sidesteps her ass and kicks her out the way, stating that outside his targets, he'd prefer not to hurt anyone else he knows, similar to how he approached Sentomaru, but we know how that went. Frankie tries to radical beam him, but Kizuru is already out of there before he can even charge it up. Gotta respect Kizuru for sticking to the plan and not BSing. Stella and Atlas have finally cracked the code to York's passcode, but they're a little too late as Kizuru has already pulled up on them. I thought this was about to be a moment for Sanji and or Jinbei, but both of them are MIA this chapter. Luckily, Luffy grabs Kizuru with his big Gear 5 hand, Tom and Jerry style. Luffy is sick because he's all burnt up from Kizuru kicking him through the barrier and him having to go back through the barrier again to get back in there. Kizuru is a little astonished at Luffy's form, but I think this fight is far from over on both sides. I doubt Luffy will get an easy W here. And as I stated in my last review, I still think Luffy is going to have to face some consequences for overusing Gear 5, because he's already used it a couple times so far in this arc. The last panel we see is the giant robot that climbed over the red line all those years ago is now awake, and is going to be on the move once again. Predictions. Okay, so now that we're at the prediction section, like I mentioned earlier, here's my other thought when it comes to Kuma. I think that while he did climb the red line, he isn't going after the same thing that that ancient robot was going after when he climbed the red line initially. I think Kuma may potentially be the reason that the Straw Hats end up escaping whenever he does reach Egghead. In chapter 1090, the gang have the idea to have the Vega Force Mark I fly over the Navy forces on the northeast side of the island, then coup de burst the rest of the way from the island in the sunny. However, they need to crack York's passcode to bring the Frontier Dome down. This chapter, they were able to crack the code, but the Vega Force was demolished, so they need to come up with a new way for them to get off the island. Since they cracked the passcode, I don't know if the Frontier Dome will be open. It seems as though it's still up, since Luffy had to go through it and was burned. But if it comes down next chapter, I assume that the Straw Hats, mainly Jinbei and Sanji, will have to confront the Vice Admirals that made their way onto the shore last chapter in 1091. Luffy and Gizuru's fight is far from over, like I said, and although we do see a couple sweat beads on Kizaru, I think we're going to see him and Luffy be a relatively even matchup. I think we'll also see Zoro versus Lucci next chapter, which you know I'm waiting for. As far as them getting off the island, I think that, like I said, it'll either be Kuma or that the giant robot will have a connection to either Joy Boy and will have some reaction to Luffy in Gear 5, or will somehow be linked to that special race that Kuma is. And there will be some ancient history revealed by Dr. Vegapunk whenever Kuma arrives. Let me know your thoughts on this chapter down below, and if you like this video, please like and subscribe for more content. Thank you!